Far out from Earth, two sister planets, Saint Anne and Saint Croix, circle each other in an eternal dance. It is said a race of shapeshifters once lived here, only to perish when men came. But one man believes they can still be found, somewhere in the back of the beyond. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Hambar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Gene Wolfe's The Fifth Head of Cerberus. Fifth Head of Cerberus are three connected novellas published in one form, kind of as a novel. The first of these novellas is The Fifth Head of Cerberus and is the original one. Wolfe was asked to write the other two later, and they're tangentially connected. I believe also The Fifth Head of Cerberus is kind of what put Wolfe on the map. It was not his first publication, but it's very shortly after his first novel. And it is really, really good. Anyways, let me talk a little bit about why. It's one of the first novels I read this year, and I'm still thinking about it. So anyways, Werner Vinge is mentioned early on, which of course is a good genre fiction. This is technically sci-fi. There are cybernetics mentioned. It becomes obvious, it's obviously set in our world when French is mentioned, but it's definitely not Earth. There's a conversation about humanity really early on that is quite confusing, but it definitely piqued my interest. After this, we find out the house of our main character, told in first person, has a brother named David. This house has a statue of a three-headed dog in the yard, so people call it Maison du Chien, which is the house of the dog, of course, or dog house, I guess, if you wanted to say it that way. The fourth head of that statue, of course, is its maiden head, according to David. This is, of course, David being clever. It's, of course, the amazing archaic term for virginity, since this dog is a female dog. The main character, though, here is a child, and because of this, the world seems normal in a sense, though it's obviously not, with some observation. The story seems to focus on identity and characters' uncertainty, particularly when it comes to the Abo, an alien species of changelings that may or may not have existed at once or may or may not still exist. The second story, the first one really reminded me of Plato's Allegory of the Cave. I'll leave that there, though. A Story by John V. Marsh is story number 2. So that's what it's called. Marsh is a minor character in part 1, and this story is a little shorter than the first. This one seems almost like to be about a band level society telling a story. Uses names for things that you wouldn't understand a lot, though ones like tree kind of make sense. They're not euphemistic. They're the way these people think, being translated literally into English, which should not be the case. I don't understand it, basically. This is the most confusing of the stories. Then we have characters like Eastwind and Sandwalker as twins, connected in some esoteric way that twins are, of course. They also seem to be Abo, a race mentioned in the first story. The third story is the longest. It is also very confusing, but is not the most confusing. It's called VRT. Those 3 letters are the initials monogrammed on an old notebook, seemingly of no import, at least not to the officer examining a plethora of things, primarily a tape of some interrogation. So this story is reading a notebook, watching a video. They're connected, you think? Anyways, so it's actually maybe a dream. I don't know, maybe a journal or interview. It jumps all over the place in multiple ways, and it's, again, very disorienting. The most disorienting out of all the styles, the second one is kind of straightforward but really confusing, and the first one is very subtle. And for example, the first one has the answer to what is the fifth head of Cerberus. You just have to pay attention to it. It actually kind of tells you pretty early on. But the question of identity here is fascinating. Are we human beings, or are there Abo human beings because they participate in the form of human beings? That is a very interesting question. Definitely a different look probably at the idea of post-human. But that sci-fi is generally not afraid to look at, or at least the best sci-fi in my opinion. So this was one of those novels that I read and I'm like, wow, I wish I could write that well. And Wolfe typically does that, so it was a great novel to start my year off. So anyways, this has been Liam's Lyceum. Have you read The Fifth Head of Cerberus? Are you planning on? This was not my first Teen Wolf. I've read the Book of the New Sun first, and I had read half of Long Sun or so before reading this. So now I finished Long Sun, actually. So, but anyways, I will catch you next time.